Good morning. Good to see you guys. We went to the was it Asian American Pacific Islander thing, the event yesterday down there at the Merritt Park. So it was interesting. I think it's the first time I've ever been to I guess it wasn't really a protest or a rally. I guess it was a vigil, and so it was. Yeah, definitely didn't know what to expect. If you want to look at the video, though, there's a video of it on their website. If anything, I think it was just good to be able to hear from people from the Black community, especially Black pastors, just talking about things that they're facing. And I think one of the things that I was thinking about was, how does all this help or work out? Because it seems like it's such a small thing. In my mind, at least, it's like, well, there's maybe 100, maybe 150, maybe 125 people there, and most of them were pastors. Actually, they did a kind of at the end saying, how many of you are clergy? And I swear at least a third of us, or not a half, but a good third, raised their hands. And so I was thinking, well, how does that work, or what's the what difference is really going to make? And so, as I was pondering that, we are trying to do this message too on Jesus multiplying, what you give, well, these little things. And yeah, so I'm still pondering through that, but and we'll see what the impact is, right? What longer term, bigger term things will happen as a result of that. But it does sometimes, I think, as we go through this passage, I think a lot of the ways that we think will come up. I'm hoping that it will, because I know I can see how I think my shortfalls in my thinking come up in this passage in terms of how I respond to problems, how I respond to different needs and things that I see. So as we go through this, I hope that you'll kind of jump in and kind of be there as the disciples are trying to solve this problem that Jesus brings up to them. So here, let's get into this. Sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, that is the Sea of Tiberias. And a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the miraculous signs he had performed on the sick. And then Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover feast was near. Okay, so that's a lot of background, but it's necessary to know the background because it's kind of giving a timestamp. Okay, so this chapter 5 had Jesus still in Jerusalem, and he was for one of the feasts. So most likely it was the Tabernacle Feast, which was like 6 months ago. That was chapter 5. So now 6 months later, he's back up there in Galilee instead of Jerusalem, and he has his crowd following him. And I think we've studied this passage in one of the other gospels, and we kind of figured out it's probably the little northeast side of the lake, and he's been performing miracles, so people are following. This is kind of the height of his popularity now, right? And they're like, okay, he's who is this Jesus guy? So in essence, this is about 2 years into his ministry. There's another year until he's gonna pass away, right? He's gonna be crucified. So they're assuming Jesus did ministry for about 3 years. Okay, so this seems to be there's a first Passover noted in John 2, and then this is the second time the Passover is mentioned in John 6. So they figure it's been about 2 years, almost 2 years, that Jesus has been doing public ministry now. Okay, and so that's kind of the background. That's why all the tags are in there, timeline tags. Right? And so Jesus went up on the mountainside, sat down with his disciples, and then he sees this crowd coming. Right? When Jesus looked up from the mountainside, he saw a great crowd coming toward him. He said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Okay, so Jesus, seems interesting, right? That he's testing his disciples. Usually this word test is usually only used for the Pharisees and all these other people that are kind of opposing Jesus. But here Jesus is asking one of his disciples, "Hey, Philip, How are we gonna feed these? We're gonna find something to feed these people. And he might be asking Philip because Philip is supposed to be a native of this area. This is, he comes from Bethsaida, which is supposed to be near this area. So he's kind of the local. It's sort of like us asking where to eat in LA. Supposedly we should know by now, but we really don't. So that's what we ask you. Where do we eat? And so Jesus is asking, hey Philip, where shall we buy bread for all these people to eat? And Philip answered him, I can't say it, 8 month wages would not be enough bread for each of these people to have a bite, or for each one to have a bite. And when I read that, I don't know if the original language is meant to be sarcastic, but it sure feels very sarcastic, right? The Philip just did a mental calculation. He looked at all the people, because we'll find out later, it's about 5,000 men plus women and children. So, 5, maybe 10, could be 15,000. There's a lot of people there. And so he's, well, 8 months wages is not enough. It's in some of your Bibles, it might say 200 denarii. So a denarii is supposed to be enough for one person's, one laborer's wage a day. So I don't even know how he got 200. If he saw that many people, how he got to 200. But so my way of thinking about Philip's answer would be, he did the mental math. He intuitively looked at it all and said, "There's a lot of people. I don't think 200 is going to be enough." So that was how Philip kind of answered this question. And you remember now, how long has Philip been with Jesus? He's been with Jesus from almost the beginning of his ministry. If you go back to John 1, it shows that Philip was one of the first guys who started following Jesus. Right? If you're just tracking the book of John, Philip has seen Jesus turn water to wine. That's in chapter 2. He saw the signs during the Passover, also in chapter 2. He heard him talking to Nicodemus and the woman at the well. And he's seen the man get healed who was ill for 38 years. And that's just in the book of John. If you look at some of the other Gospels, and if they're written in chronological order, which I'm assuming they are pretty chronological, here are the other things that Philip should have seen or heard about. Right, so he saw the healing of a demoniac in a synagogue. He saw Peter's mom get married. Peter's wife's mother get healed if she was sick. He saw the first miraculous catch of fish. Right, Jesus said, "Throw your nets on the other side of the boat," and they caught a huge catch of fish. He saw cleansing a leper. He saw the paralytic being lowered to the roof. He saw a man with a withered hand being healed. He saw Jesus talk to the centurion. Right, he healed the centurion at a distance. He said, "Hey," the centurion said, "Don't come to my house, just say the word, and he'll be healed." He saw Jesus raise a widow's son. He saw a blind and dumb demon be cast out. He saw Jesus still the storm. He saw the casting out of Legion from the demoniac from Garda. He saw the woman that had the flow for 12 years. He saw her healed. He saw the raising of Jairus' daughter. He saw the healing of 2 blind men, and he saw the healing of a dumb spirit. Now, assuming that Philip has been with Jesus the whole time and has experienced all these things, that, even if he saw half of these things, and we have to remember not all of what Jesus did is recorded in these Gospels, that Philip had a lot of experience in watching Jesus, right? You think. 2 years, pretty long time, Jesus doing these miraculous things. And so you would think that Philip might have answered this question differently, right? Because Philip has seen Jesus, he knows who Jesus is, and he says, "Oh," instead of answering, "Well, of course, God, you can find bread for them all, or it won't be an issue," he says, "No, I did the mental math, God, can't do it." All right, so that's one response. Another response is this. Another of his disciples, Andrew, Andrew again was one of the first disciples. Simon Peter's brother spoke up. "Here's a boy with 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will they go among so many?" And the image we have here is that Andrew actually ran into the crowd and started asking people, "Hey, do you have any food?" I, in one of the other, again, in the Gospel of Mark, it says, Jesus says, go find out what we have. So Andrew's being obedient to Jesus and said, okay, let me go and run to the crowd. And I don't know how many people he talked to. We don't know how long it took. I don't know if you ever tried to get people's attention in a large group. I just think of church at times when you have like 100 of us and we're going to try and take a photo somewhere and how you got to go to each group multiple times. So I can imagine Andrew running through the crowd going, hey, anybody got food here? And again, in I think in the book of Matthew, it talks about how they've been there the whole day. Right? This is getting on towards the evening time. So they followed Jesus in the morning. Jesus was teaching them and healing them. And now it's in the evening, and the people are, should be going home for a meal. And so if they've been there the whole day, there's probably not a lot of, if they brought something, they probably ate it. Right. And so it's, I definitely would not want Andrew's job to go out there and ask, because I hate asking. But Andrew went and did that. So if you want to put it in a manner of speaking, I think Andrew's more of the, all right, this is the problem. We need food, so I'm gonna go try to find a solution. And somehow he finds a little boy and he brings a little boy with him. That's the imagery of the words here. Is that here's a boy. So he's actually bringing the boy with him. Says, here's a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. Right? This is like a snack. This is maybe enough food for the child. But Angie also is kind of sarcastic, cynical at this point. But he says, well, how far is this going to go among so many of us? I mean, there's 5,000 of us. I don't know if you ever tried to feed. I mean, what's the largest group of people you've ever tried to feed? I think we did a luau in University of Washington to help do the luau. So I think we did about 500 to 700, and that was crazy. I mean, we were heating up the Kula pig because they shipped it up from Hawaii, all afternoon, and then we made like squid luau. You get these big pots. They're the industrial side, because we were using the kitchen in University of Washington. So it's like 2.5 foot pot with the about 2 feet, 18 inches, 20 inches around. And you get the big paddle, 4-foot paddle, and you're stirring, and you have like 5 or 6 of those pots, and you're like, this is crazy. You fed them all. That was crazy. Don't think I ever want to try that again. But it's 500 to 600 people. I mean, that's not 5,000. So I'm hearing Andrew like, yeah, this ain't gonna go very far, Jesus. This is just enough for me, and you guys can figure out what you're gonna do. But that was Andrew's thing, right? He was look for the solution, but he was kind of like, God, this ain't gonna work. Right? So if I, as you think about it, if you were standing there, how would you have responded to that? Right? And even now, we think about ourselves as we see problems and needs in our lives, in our community, and lives of our friends. How do we respond to it? And here I brought up, these aren't the only ways, but I kind of tried to summarize them into 2 major ones. One way, and if you think of the Myers-Briggs, I was thinking in intuitive types. They just look at it and go, it's not going to work. And without following through, in my mind, not following through all the different steps and seeing all the different outcomes. It's more like, no, it's not going to work. And so they'll stop the process and we'll just forget about it. It's not an option. We'll jump to the next one. Not saying that it's wrong. Okay, just saying these are different ways of processing. So are you this kind of person? And maybe depends on the problem. Maybe if it's something that you know a lot about, you go, it's not gonna work. We tried that. Or if it's just like, well, that's have no way to figure that out, so we're just gonna stop. It's too big. Okay, that's one way. Then as I was thinking of Myers-Briggs, I was thinking intuitive types probably do this. And then, but there's other way. This is for some of the rest of us, not the rest of us, but in a manner of speaking, for other people. We go and look for solutions, right? The first thing we do, we'll go and Google it. What's the problem? And we'll keep looking for articles, and then we'll find, as we search through articles, we go, hey, here's some keywords. Let's search on those keywords. And you go, oh, look, here's another bunch of things. And you go, and you finally, you will go through 5 or 6, 10, 15, 20 articles, and you finally figure, oh, okay, here's the whole issue now. Now I figure out some of the solutions, and some of these solutions aren't so good. They're a little complicated, a little tricky. They're cost too much money or whatever it may be, and then you're just discouraged by the solutions. That's Andrew, right? He went and looked for all the answers, and he's like, okay, there are answers to this, but they're gonna work, or they're just too hard. So I'm not saying that we all fit into one or the other, but I had a hard time thinking of a second or a third or fourth one, because I figure I'm either one of I'm the second one more so than the first. Um, and so I think all of us have that issue though when we start looking at the needs around us. Whether we go into the first one or the second one, it's the sometimes we can only see we can't get past what our eyes see. Right? We may know Jesus. Okay, Philip and Andrew knew Jesus. They saw all his miracles. But when the problems come up, instead of relying on God, they said, hey, what can I do within my own strength, within my own power? What solutions can I see? And both of them quickly got into a dead end, right? They said, there's not enough money, God. Or hey, look, I looked for all the solutions, God, and there ain't any good ones. And how do we respond? How do you respond? Try think through, which one do you lean towards more? We're going to come back to your response at the end of the message, but think through. I think we can quickly tag ourselves which one we're more like. But okay, so if you notice too, after Jesus put this question out, and he already knew what he's going to do. So it was a test for them to see what the response would be. And if you notice, after Philip's response and after Andrew's response, Jesus doesn't criticize either of them, but he does do something to challenge their faith. Hey, Jesus said, have the people sit down. In other places, it's Jesus having them sit down, but he says, have the people sit down, indicating he's going to feed them, right? He's going to have them sit down in groups of 50 and hundreds. And again, if you were there, the disciples might be freaking out because they're like, okay, Jesus, we got 5 fish and 5 bread, 5 loaves and 2 fish. And Jesus is telling us to have people sit down with the intention of feeding them, and we have no idea how this is going to work. Right? There's plenty of grass in that place, and the man sat down, about 5,000 of them. Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed it to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. Okay, so if you can imagine, in this case, it looks like Jesus went to each group, and distributed, bread and fish. I know in Matthew and some of the other places, because the feeding 5,000 actually is all 4 Gospels. He hands it to the disciples, and then the disciples hand it out. Anyway, doesn't matter. Everyone got as much as they wanted. That was the main point there. That somehow those 5, not somehow, it was a miracle. Okay, but don't know what it looked like when he was doing it though. That's what I want to see the video. I don't know. However, we can go back and see what Jesus did when he was alive. I want to see it. How did you get that? How did that work? How did he split the bread up? But again, the main point here is that they got as much as they wanted. When they all had enough to eat. Okay, so again, they're sated. The people had, it's gonna actually say there's more than enough from what we see here, but each person was full. He said to the disciples, gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted. So they gathered them, the pieces, right, and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. Okay, and so here's the completion of the miracle, right? You're like, wow, how did Jesus do all that? And we'll get to the point here in a second. But right, so this is the miracle. Everyone had enough to eat. In fact, there was so much left over that they picked up 12 baskets. Some people read into those 12 baskets. Like it's like one of the perfection numbers in the Bible. Um, but we're just gonna leave it alone. There's 12 disciples. Maybe each one grabbed the basket and filled it up. Okay, after the people saw the miraculous sign that Jesus did, they began to say, "Surely this is the prophet who is to come into the world." Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again to a mountain by himself. Okay, so just to finish up this part of scripture, this is the prophet they're assuming back from Genesis when Moses said, "Look, there's another person coming. He's going to do basically what things that I do, and listen to it." And in a sense, this whole situation is sort of like going through the desert, right? In the desert, they didn't have any food, and Moses prays to God. God sends manna. Similar kind of redoing of the story here in John. Okay, but they said, "Oh, this must be the prophet. This is the guy who's going to save us. He's going to save us from the Romans." And so they were going to go and make Jesus and say, "Hey, you're going to be our king," and they're going to make it do it by force, meaning, "Hey, you're forced into position. There's no choice for you. There's no options. We're going to make you king." But Jesus withdrew. So if you can understand this, that Jesus, there's, I don't know, would you have the willpower to do this if 5,000 people say, "Hey, we want to make you king. You're gonna make us your, I don't know, not general, but you're gonna be our king." Just the peer pressure, you know, or if I don't think any of us are like this. Maybe there's other people who are like this, who say, "Hey, there's all these people who are giving me this adulation. They're willing to back me. I'm gonna step into that role." Jesus, on the other hand, says, "Hey, that's not the kind of king I want to be," and so he withdraws. And we'll find out what kind of king he wants to be later on, chapter 6. But there's just enough to know right now that Jesus knew their intention to make him king, that he challenges later on in verse 24, or is it verse 26? If you have your Bibles, you can look there. I didn't write it down here. They were trying to make him king because they had enough food to eat, not because they really followed him or sought after him. Yeah, they're trying to, I don't say they were control Jesus, but they weren't coming to him with the best of motives. Right? They were trying to turn him into something they could use versus what Jesus himself represented. Right? So let's go back. Let's go back to how do you respond to needs around you? Did you, I don't want to show of hands because I can't see everybody on my screen, but which one were you? Do you know, is there a oh, I should do a poll question. I didn't think about that. Could have done a poll question. Which one are you? Hopefully you know which one which one you are more, I would think. Yeah. Okay. Raise your hand if you kind of know. Yes. Yeah. A couple of you. All right. But there's a third option. I don't know if you saw the third option back in the passage. Right? Philip looked at the problem and said, "Oh, not gonna work." Andrew said, "Okay, let me go and find solutions." And then he's like, "Oh, the solution I got, the options I have, not gonna happen." There's a third option if you read the story. And the option is this. The little kid came up, and I don't know, who are his parents? Why did he still have food? How did it not get eaten? But the little kid came up and said, "I have 5 fish. I have 5 loaves and 2 fish. Can you use it?" Right? I mean, I can't imagine Andy snatching the fish away and said, "Hey, give me that food, and then you go away." And "Hey, Jesus, I got some food." Right? I don't think he's like stole it from the kid. So it's the kid was willing to bring it up and say, "Hey, Lord, this is what I have. Can you use it?" Are we willing to say that? Right? Are we willing to say that to Jesus? "Here's what I have. Can you use it?" Because a lot of times we go the opposite. "Hey, Lord, I don't have this, so I can't help with that. I'm sorry." But are we willing to switch it around? Do we believe that Jesus is able to multiply what we give to him freely? Right? Are we willing to say, hey, or I don't know what to do, but this is the best I have. Can you use it? I think the rally yesterday, that's kind of the thought I was having. It's like, hey God, I was not going, I was not planning to go because I was very frustrated with the whole thing. I was like, wow, they didn't plan enough. And then I also felt responsible for being on the planning committee because I was like, because planning comes easy, figuring out all the details, like, okay, this is how it's gonna work, boom, 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 boom. And so I was feeling, okay, they underplanned and everything. So I was feeling very responsible. And so I went to sleep Friday night thinking, very burdened because I didn't really want to go and felt responsible to go. I woke up Saturday morning saying and felt like, oh, I actually don't need to go. I actually felt at peace not going. Then I said, at the same time I said, oh, I still want to go. So I went. That's the only reason I went, because I didn't want to try to put Jesus in that box of control. He's like, hey, because I did this, you have to do this. That's kind of what the crowd was doing. I'm not trying to. I don't want to use God. I don't want to demand things from God that God is not asking for. Right? I'm trying to come to God with the same intent of, all right, you've given me this administrative gift. I mean, I'm not the greatest preacher, I admit, but I have this administrative gift. Here, what do you want me to do with it? Can you use it? Not try to demand him to act a certain way, though. But can you use this? And so we'll see what happens from from that thing yesterday. I mean, I don't know, but I also have to remember that Jesus is able to multiply what I'm willing to give. Right? That's what that little kid. I don't know if he actually thought through all of that, but he basically said, "Okay, God, I don't know what you're gonna do, but I got 5 loaves and 2 fish. Can you use it?" And I think that's kind of one of the main things about this passage that we can take away from. Are there things that you, I mean, are you willing to have this? Are you willing to set aside some of your own, maybe the quick, easy things to check off? Oh, no, not gonna work. Oh, I looked for the solutions. Not a good answer. not a good solution. But are you willing to say, hey, look, here's what I have. Can you use it? So, of course, the question then shifts a little. If we're willing to say that, here's what I have. Can you use it? What do you have? What do you have to respond to needs around you? And again, if we're quick, we can see ourselves look through that question and go mentally thinking, nope, don't got anything. end of question. Or we could go through the other round and go, oh yeah, I got all these different things, but can God really use it? Right? I don't know. Again, this is where our own minds are too quick sometimes. But let me expand a little on what are some things that you do have. Because someone might think, I have nothing to give. And others are like, well, that's how can God use that? So let's break this down a little bit more. It doesn't have to be money, right? But it could be your time. And right now, all of us are, well, most of us are stuck at home. We have time. Now, how does that work? Well, if you have time, you can spend that time and use it to help others do whatever they need. Right? Money, you could use money too, but what else are there? Maybe you use your talents. Maybe you like reading. I'm sure there's programs out there that need people just to read to others, read to kids. There's things you do. Maybe it's writing. I was looking for that C.S. Lewis and Tolkien. Right, so Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings. C.S. Lewis wrote like Screwtape Letters, Chronicles of Narnia. And I'm trying to find out how does I was trying to I could have swore that they actually made a decision where they love fantasy. They both like fantasy, like Norse mythology. So that's kind of how they wrote. And I thought there was something where they actually chose to say we're gonna be experts in these fields so that we can share. about Christ through them. I thought I was looking for that, but I didn't. I thought I've read that somewhere, but I couldn't find it. But I did find that Tolkien actually brought Lewis back to the Christian faith, and but it was through their hobby, you know, just through their writing. And then Lewis, on the other hand, encouraged Tolkien to write Lord of the Rings, and these are just their hobbies. These are things they're just so interested in, but they're using it to encourage each other in faith. Are there things that you do that can be used to encourage other people? I mean, if you look back over I guess I've been here about 8 years. If you look back over the time we've been here, have you figured out how I involve you in my hobbies? Drag people out fishing, go try to play volleyball, go camping. I mean, I don't know if it's an open secret, but you know, I drag people out to go do things I like. I don't know if it's because I'm bored or whatnot, but I've learned over the years to use what I have to reach out to those that are around me. And maybe because I'm a country boy, I never thought of that, but I do country boy things, so fishing, hunting, hiking, going camping. But that, not to say that, hey, that's all planned out. It just sort of happened. But hopefully you can use the same things to reach out to those around you. I've seen Jai start cooking the sourdough breads, and thank you to Grace for giving her the starter. Just giving it to our neighbors. So, wow, that's kind of cool. They really like the bread. It is good bread, so I'm not criticizing the bread. It's very, for me, it's like, why is that? I won't say the word encouraging. It's sort of like, I guess I try to give them fish, so I guess it's the same thing, just different product. But it's building community, is building that bridge that you can hopefully share Christ with them. What can you use? What do you have that you can use to reach out to the needs around you? That you can reach out to people around you. Right? It doesn't have to be earth-shattering. It doesn't have to be like, but what can you use? Maybe it's art. Maybe it's writing children's stories. Maybe it's, you do such a good job logistically. Maybe you can use that for other causes. Because if it comes easily, it's like, oh, boom, here's the list. All right, have fun. You figure out the rest of it, but here's the list you need. These are the things you need to think through. But what do you have? Take stock. And as you do that, here's the second thing you have to probably think through. As you look through the things that you have, the next thing you have to do is, are you willing to give those, or I guess, what are you willing to give to Jesus for these? So of those things you have, what things are you willing to say, okay, God, I'm willing to use this for your cause, or for whatever you want me to use it for. Okay, so on one side, we can look at all the things we have and we go, no, that's mine. I'm not sharing that. No, that's mine. I'm not sharing that. Or no, I'm not going to do, that's for my own enjoyment. I'm not going to give it away. But are we willing to give whatever it is to Jesus for him to use? When I again, for the API for Black Lives thing, when I signed up for the committee, I signed up for the logistics committee. I remember making the moment I signed up for that committee, I was like, okay, one of the main planners is in this committee. There's only 5 of us. I think it came out to maybe 7 of us total. It's like, I'm probably going to be stuck doing logistic things, because there's only 5 of us, or the program committee had like 20 or 30 of them, and the vision committee had another 20 of them or something. So there are only 5 of us. I don't think I can hide in this committee. And so I was really debating whether I should actually do it. But I was like, this is probably of the 3 or the 4 different things. Last one was a media committee. So like, I have no media I have no media experience or technical expertise. So okay, of the 4, this one's probably the religious committee is probably the one I should be on. So okay, we'll go join that. Knowing that I would go and feel guilty if I didn't go and help out in the whole deal. Um, but again, it was a reminder. It was almost a test for me to say, okay, am I willing to give over this talents? This I feel it's more of a gifting. Am I willing to give this over to Jesus for him to use? Right? Because it's not the end result that we should be looking at. Right? That's Jesus' responsibility. Our responsibility is to say, hey, look, God, I'm willing to give it to you. Don't know how it can be used, but can you use it? Right? A lot of us, again, we jump, if we catch our thinking really quickly, we go, oh, we jump to the end result and go, I can only go as far as I can see. And I can't see that far, admittedly, at times. And so I don't know how Jesus is going to take things. But that's the wrong question to ask. The question to ask is, Jesus, this is what I have. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm interested in. This is what I like doing. This is what I find easy to do. Can you use it? Right? Because that's the second question: is it am I willing to let him use it? Am I willing to turn over that part of my life to him and let him use it? And if you give over one part of your life, you actually kind of notice something that Jesus starts asking for other parts of your life. And at some point, he wants all of it, um, which but a lot of it's not so much. It's not so much him demanding it, but it's the interesting thing is that he says, "Hey, look, did you know you can help me this way, or I could use this?" And it's more a softening of our own hearts, I think, of saying, "Yes, Lord, I'm willing to do what you want me to do. I'm willing to allow you to use these things." There's a period of my life I actually had to. Um, I still try to practice this. It's still hard, but it was actually to say yes to everything that I couldn't find a good reason to get out of, which is hard because not saying yes to everything, but it's like, hey, does that on that date, is there other responsibilities you have? Okay, good. Say no. But it was, I got asked to speak at retreats, and I'm like, I'm not a guys, you gotta understand, I'm not a great speaker for different things. Not like I'm okay, but I know I'm not like great. So you guys really want me to come speak? Yeah, yeah. Oh, fine. I can't find another excuse not to go. I try to ask the English leadership team to give me excuses not to go to things, but they keep saying yes. It's not working. I should stop telling them about the things that I don't want to go to. But I find that that causes you to grow, right? Because you're saying, God, I'm going to say yes to everything that I can't say no to. Can you use what I have and multiply it? Because if I look with my own eyes, I'll say, no, that's not a good use of resources. That I don't know what you guys are thinking. But that's not good. Again, that God's not asking for that. God is asking, are you willing to give me whatever it is so I can use it? So take stock. What are some of those things that God is asking you? And what's preventing you from being willing to give that over to him? I talk to you, I speak to you college age. I know you're all kind of like, hey, what is, how does this work for me? Right now, in being in college, you have no responsibilities for your food per se. You're not going to be broke. You're not going to go into, well, you are going into debt if you're borrowing money. But for right now, you're being fed and you have a roof over your head. And you don't, in a matter of speaking, you don't have a lot of responsibilities to take care of your family or anybody else. Use this time now to figure out who Jesus is to you. Because otherwise, if you just keep seeking after the American dream, if you keep seeking after, I just need a job and money, and then we'll figure out Christianity later, you're going to miss what God can do in your life. Because it's too easy to go that route. Because once you start figuring out, hey, I got this money, all that, then you start thinking, this is mine, and do I need to share? But ask yourself, what can I use? What are the things God has given me? What can I use? How can God use it? And my job as pastor is to help you guys figure out places you can use it. That's part of my job. I see that's my part of my job. Create jobs for you, places to use your gifts and skills. But you're the ones that have to figure out, hey, am I willing to use it? Am I willing to give this piece over to God for him to use? And same thing for adults. I mean, we have the same issue. We have to decide what parts we want to give to Jesus. But the main thing we have to remember, the main thing we have to keep coming back to is Jesus can take whatever we give to him and he can multiply it. Okay, it's not our role to figure out, to dismiss possibilities because we can't see the end of it. Yeah, we should think through the problems. We should think through the steps. I'm not saying we shouldn't plan and exercise our brains and everything else. But in the midst of that, the question really is, Lord, I see the problem. I'm not sure how to solve it, but here's what I have. Can you use it? And allow God to multiply it. That's not our job. Our job is to be faithful. Right? Our job is to say, hey, this is what I have, Lord. Can you use it? And God is the one that multiplies. God is the one that takes that and uses it for his glory. It's not for our glory, but it's for his glory. This is kind of why Jesus turned away those people at the end, right? Like, wow, Jesus, you did a great job. Come be our king because we did this great miracle. And Jesus like, no, I'm not trying to take advantage of you. I'm not trying to use you. I'm trying to show you that I'm God, that you need to come to me. Right? We need to get rearranged. We need to arrange our thinking. We need to be aware of what we're thinking. But that's what I leave with you. I leave that thought for you. Lord, here's what I have. Can you use it? Are you willing to say that? Are you willing to come before him and say, hey, God, I can do this really well. This comes really easily. Can you use it? And allow him to show up. Allow him to put possibilities in front of you. The AAP, I think, came up because we're talking about this whole Black lives and how, racial reconciliation and not racial reconciliation, it's just understanding what's going on. The funny thing is, right after we start talking about that, I was like, hey, I know this guy Daniel, he's the guy from Fuller that organized that whole thing. I was like, oh yeah, he knows about this stuff. He should come talk to us. And like immediately the next day, he sent the email to me. Hey, there's this committee we're trying to design. We're trying to put this event on. God does pretty amazing things when you are willing to say, okay, God, what do you want me to do? Can you use what I have? Let me pray for you, or us. Lord God, we thank you for being an awesome God. Lord, Lord, you ask us to have a faith like a child, not of a child, but like a child, meaning that we trust you for all things and for everything. And Lord, I know that as we grow older, we become less childlike because we can see things, we have more experiences, we have more knowledge about how things work. But at the same time, Lord, we sometimes we forget that you are the one that multiplies things, Lord. That you are the one that takes whatever we have and makes it bigger, make it have a bigger effect, or that it brings you glory. Lord, help us to remember that. Help us not to just focus on what we can see, what we can feel or touch or understand, but really help us to say, here's what I have, Lord. Can you use it? And that when those possibilities, when those situations come up, that we'll step into them. They'll be willing to try them. We'll be willing to say, okay, God, I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I know that you're leading. I can't deny that you're leading me into it. So, Lord, take what I have and may you use it. Lord, may you continue to speak to us and press those words on our heart that you want to take whatever we're willing to give and use it for your glory.